So after a sketch was made of this zombie donut, I actually got to work and putting down the main sketches on the canvas. This was just done with an ordinary mechanical pencil, scaling up my initial drawing onto the canvas so it's much bigger. This is the point in the process where I make sure that the donut isn't too small, at the same time making sure it's not too big so it doesn't fill the canvas and you can't get everything into the canvas itself. Especially considering that the donut is reaching out towards the viewer. As you can see here, after the line work was done, it was time to start painting. Now normally when I paint I like to start from the background forward, and then I normally leave the outlines till last, so the painting only really comes together at the very last stage. It's also at this point where I'm trying to figure out colours for the painting, which is kind of a bad way to do it, as I should have pre-planned earlier as opposed to figuring out the colours whilst I'm painting it. For future paintings I kind of have a better idea in my head, but for this painting I don't really know how it's going to turn out until the paint is on the canvas. And then disaster struck. After going the cheaper route and getting bad paints, I realised that these paints aren't going to give me the coverage or the colour that I wanted for this canvas, so straight in the bin they went. And believe it or not, I went for Games Workshop paints, which for the model brand of paints have a lot more pigment in them, so it gives me a lot more coverage on the canvas, brighter colours, and because of the Games Workshop style of paints, they have a wide variety of colours that I can use, especially for a bright coloured character piece like this. Even though I knew I would have to mix some of these paints later on, making sure I've got colours like bright pink or even the blue that I end up using for the background in large quantities, make sure that none of the colours are merging or blending together even though they're meant to be the same colour. Making these switch to these newer paints was a massive advantage as opposed to the previous paints I was using before, as it sped up the process of the painting dramatically as opposed to putting maybe even 5 layers on the previous paint and not even getting close to what even 1 or 2 coats of this paint would make. So as you can see, it ends up becoming a painting by numbers scenario where I've got an area, a colour, and then I paint that colour in the area. And this continued until I had the entire donut painted the way I wanted. Now I haven't actually talked about what this painting was for. This painting was for the Animation Art Show in Dublin, which is held every year, where people in the animation industry donate or even offer a piece that's sold for auction, and then the money from the auction goes to charity. That's how this piece came about, as well as this canvas, which was A3 size, which was the maximum I could have gone to. And subsequently, I ended up creating a few other canvases in this style. So as you can see here, I'm now putting on the final step of the painting, which is outlining the piece with a small brush as opposed to putting it on with a pen. This gives me greater control over the thickness and the width of the outline, as opposed to just sticking with one width, which is what a pen would give. You'll see with the bags under the eyes of the donut, where the lines under the eyes are a lot thicker, giving the appearance of bags underneath the eyes. And here's a look at it finished with the outlines. Although seeing the outlines, I eventually realised that it needed a shadow underneath it to give it a bit more weight, which I painted using the background colour and adding a little bit of the black to it to make it slightly darker. So with the piece finally finished, the very last step to do was to sign the piece, which I did with bright red Bob Ross style on the bottom right hand corner and dated it as well. I know I'm putting this video up in 2019, however I did paint this last year, with the video finally coming together now. And there you have it, the first painting in a little mini series, and here are the pictures of it hung up and in the gallery, including one photo of me next to it with a very smug face. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.